Today in this lecture, we are going to talk about glomerular capillary membrane, which is basically the membrane through which the filtration occurs. Here is the glomerular capillary membrane. Here is the glomerulus, and here is the glomerular capillary membrane. Basically, we have started discussing the process of urine formation, and we have discussed that process of urine formation starts with filtration at the glomerulus. So, we have discussed different steps about the filtration process. Now it's the time to discuss the glomerular capillary membrane. The glomerular capillary membrane, it has some characteristics which has effects on the filtration of water, solutes and proteins. So there are basically three important layers in the GCM. First is the endothelium, then the basement membrane, and finally the epithelium. If we start discussing the glomerular capillary membrane from inside towards outside, from the inner side towards the outer side, the innermost layer of the glomerular capillary membrane is the endothelium. Is in every capillary in the human body there is an endothelium. Similarly, in the glomerulus there is a layer of endothelium. Now you all must know, as we have discussed again and again, that inside the kidneys there are thousands of nephrons. Each nephron receives the blood through afferent arteriole. The blood is filtered in the glomerulus, and then the remaining blood goes through the efferent arteriole, and then it divides into another capillary bed, the peritubular capillaries, and finally, after going towards the venous side, the blood goes through the renal vein, and the blood that is filtered, that filtrate basically keeps on moving through the Bowman capsule and the nephron tubules. So, discussing the filtration process in detail and talking about the glomerular capillary membrane, it is very important to see and discuss the components of this membrane and what differentiates this membrane from other membranes. Normally in capillaries anywhere else in the human body, there are normally two layers, the endothelium and the basement membrane. Here in the glomerular capillary membrane, in this area, we have three layers: the endothelium, the basement membrane and the epithelium. Now, the third layer is very much important, and it is made of cells which are known as podocytes, and this blue color is showing the podocytes, and you can see it has some limbs like structure which are sitting on top of this basement membrane, but they are not continuous. You can see there is a space between the different limbs of these podocytes. This is the space. So this is like a crepe sitting here. So to start with, the endothelium is the innermost layer. This is the innermost layer. Endothelium is the innermost layer, and this layer, we have cut it at these points. This layer has been cut. This area has been dissected. It has been cut at this level, and we can see there are some pores known as fenestrae. There are fenestration, and the pores are known as fenestrae, due to which the fluid that is being filtered, they can enter the fenestrae and they can move towards this side. Now, the importance of this endothelial layer, the endothelium, which is making the first layer on the inner side, it has these fenestrae, and these fenestrae, the fenestrations, they basically make sure that a lot of fluid can come from the arterioles and it can be filtered. Now, these fenestrae, it will allow the water and solute to move from the blood vessel towards the basement membrane and then to the slit pores from this side towards this side. Blood is coming from this side and it will move like this. So before moving through the capillary wall or the vessel wall, it will basically be moving through the fenestrae. These are the fenestration, and these sides show the cells which have been cut like this. So the area has been cut, and these are the cut edges. The orange color is basically the endothelium, and the endothelium is having the fenestrae. The fenestrae will allow the water and solute to move, but these fenestrae, they have negative charge. So the negative charge will not allow the proteins to move. The first layer makes sure that water and solute move tremendously with high speed from the capillaries towards the Bowman capsule, and it can be filtered, but the proteins should not be filtered, and for that purpose the fenestrae are larger in size, but they have negative charge. The protein also have negative charge, so they repel each other. Now the second layer of the glomerular capillary membrane is the basement membrane, EBE, endothelium, basement membrane and epithelium. So the basement membrane is basically made of proteoglycans. It is made of proteoglycans and collagen fibers. So collagen fibers and proteoglycan, they also have negative charge. Now this basement membrane, the second layer, also makes sure that water and solute can move from this side towards this side, or from this side towards this side, but proteins should not move because they also have the negative charge. So the endothelial layer and the basement membrane, they have the negative charge and they repel proteins. They make sure both of these layers make sure that water and solute can move from the capillary towards the Bowman capsule, but protein should not move. Protein should not move, or protein should not come out of the blood vessel into the Bowman's capsule. Now, finally, we have the third layer. The third layer is made of special cells, which are those cells basically they are known as podocytes. These podocytes basically they have limbs or they have some structures, foot-like processes. We call it the foot or limbs. These foot-like processes, as we have discussed, they are basically present like this on top of the basement membrane. And as we discussed that they are present like this on top of the basement membrane, they are sitting like this, and these are the foot processes. But they are not in continuity, so there is space. There is some space, and this space is basically known as the slit pore. Now the slit pore of the podocytes and the foot processes of the podocytes, or the third layer of the glomerular capillary membrane, it also makes sure that water and solute should move this way, but proteins should not move, and they also have negative charge. So all three layers of the glomerular capillary membrane, the endothelium, the basement membrane, and the epithelium, the endothelium, the basement membrane, and the epithelium, they all have negative charge. They all make sure that water and solute can move with high speed in a tremendous amount, but protein should not move. Now we are talking about a normal glomerular capillary membrane. If there is some abnormality, if there is loss of the negative charge from the epithelium or loss of negative charge from the basement membrane or the endothelium, then protein may leak in the urine, but normally there should be no protein in the urine, and that's the normal glomerular capillary membrane. So to summarize, the glomerular capillary membrane is basically made of three layers. First layer on the inside is the endothelium, which has some pores or the fenestry known as fenestration, and these fenestration allow the water and solute to move from the capillary lumen towards the Bowman capsule, and they have negative charge which will not allow the proteins to move from the capillary lumen towards the Bowman capsule. The second layer is the basement membrane, which is made of collagen and proteoglycans. The collagen and the proteoglycans in the basement membrane also will allow water and solute to move from the lumen of the capillary towards the Bowman capsule, but they also have negative charge and they will not allow the proteins to move. And finally, the third layer is the epithelium. Epithelium is made of podocytes, which has foot-like processes or limbs, which basically is not in continuity, and there is some space. There is some space between the foot-like processes or the limbs of these cells. They are present on top of the basement membrane, and these spaces between the foot-like processes are known as slit pores. They also have negative charge. They also make sure that water and solute can move, and protein should not move from the capillary lumen towards the Bowman capsule, and so they all are basically making a barrier to the filtration of plasma proteins. Barrier to filtration of plasma proteins. So all these three layers are basically making a barrier to the filtration of plasma proteins. That's all about the glomerular capillary membrane. Thanks a lot for watching the video.